Welcome to a program featuring interviews of state and federal candidates, as well as the incumbents from districts served by Clatsop, Marion, Polk, Tillamook, and Yamhill counties. I'm Ruth McEwen, an advisory council member serving Northwest Senior and Disability Services Advisory Council. I want to welcome candidates, incumbents, and advisory council members to the 2022 Candidate Forum, which is sponsored by our Senior Advisory Council and our Disability Services Advisory Council. Northwest Senior and Disability Service is a local governmental organization that provides Medicaid, Oregon Project Independence, Older Americans Act, and grants-funded programs. The mission of the Northwest Senior and Disability Services is to promote dignity, independence, and health, honor choice, and empower people. The assistance and support we provide consumers include information and assistance, in-home and community-based services, and financial and medical help, meal sites and home-delivered meals, option counseling, adult protective services, Medicare counseling, peer mentoring, money management, as well as health and wellness programs. Because of the number of state legislative districts that our service area covers, we have invited a large number of candidates to be interviewed. Each candidate has been given information on the format used in these interviews. Each candidate will be introduced by a member of the advisory councils. Then each candidate will have the opportunity to answer questions which will be timed. That way you, the viewer, can compare apples to apples. We thank these candidates for their willingness to share their views about services for Oregon seniors and people with disabilities.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Amador Aguilar. I'm a volunteer with the Senior and Advisory Council at Northwest Senior Disability Services. I'm joined today by Anthony Medina, a Democrat running for House District 22. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good. So are you ready for our questions?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the first question is, tell us about your platform and experience that will encourage a senior person with disabilities to vote for you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. What I would tell a senior and a person with disabilities to vote for me would be because I'm acutely aware of the challenges they face. I grew up in Jervis, Oregon, small town. I grew up with my grandparents my entire life. My grandfather was disabled. And they raised me. My mom was 17 years old when she had me, and I spent my childhood with my grandparents. In the earlier years, they were seasonal migrant workers. They moved to the Woodburn area in the 1960s, and I grew up with my grandparents. I currently serve as their primary caregiver as well. I'm their home care worker. And I'm acutely aware of the challenges they face, not only prior to the pandemic, but the unique challenges that came throughout the pandemic, and then now that we're in a position, where the pandemic is behind us, the future challenges they face, and ensuring that the state and caregivers like myself can continue to provide the necessary services that they need.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, for your response. Question number 2 is, tell us what you know about the OPI and how it improves the lives of seniors and people with disabilities.
Yes, of course. So I've been serving as a home care worker for my grandparents, I think for about the last 4 years or so. And Oregon Project Independence is something near and dear to my heart. It provides an opportunity for seniors and people with disabilities to live independent lives in their own homes. And that means a lot. It goes a long way for folks who are struggling to get the services and care that they need, along with the relationships. It allows, family members or people they know to serve them, in ways that are unique and different and custom to their needs. Oregon Project Independence is, I believe, a textbook example of how federal and state government can come together to say, how are we going to draw down these dollars? How are we going to draw down these funding opportunities in a way that really helps seniors, that really helps folks with disabilities, particularly folks in our community who are the most vulnerable.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I was going to reiterate, I serve as a home care worker, and I probably more of an answer to question one, but you mentioned my platform. Serve as a home care worker for my grandparents. Been doing that for the last 5 years, but really the scope of why I do the work is because of opportunities that they gave me as seniors, and folks who took care of me. I grew up with my grandparents, and they talk about their life experience growing up, being sixth grade graduates, encouraging me to go to school. I was the first in my family to graduate from high school, first to go to college. My platform is around providing healthcare, access and affordability to quality healthcare, because I've seen experiences like folks like my grandparents, people with living with disabilities, people up and down and across all of Oregon who struggle to receive the proper health care that they need. Second issue is education. I'm a product of our public education system. I'm very proud of the education that I received, and I've been trying to do my best to give back. I graduated from Jervis High School, small town, but I think maybe like 60 kids in my graduating class. And we didn't talk about college. We didn't talk about career opportunities after. And so I graduated from high school, and I was working at the Brooks NORPAC Cannery, right familiar, right off I-5. And I was working at the NORPAC Cannery. I was driving forklift, and graveyard shift after graduating high school. I didn't know what I was going to be doing in the fall. And my high school counselor, TRIO advisor, TRIO and Upward Bound advisor, called me and said, "Hey, Anthony, what are your plans for the fall? What are you going to be doing?" And I said, I have no clue. No one talked to me about it. My family, didn't go to college. We don't have those conversations. At least we hadn't yet. And my advisor said, "Well, there's orientation next week at Western Oregon University. You should go. Just check it out. See if you like it." And so I did. I took the night off working graveyard shift at the cannery and went to Western to the orientation, and fell in love, not because of a college campus and the nice building, but the words of my grandfather. He'd always tell me, "Mijo, just get a job inside with air conditioning." That's all he wanted. I grew up, in Jervis, working at the cannery, working in the fields during the summer, and my grandpa had that same life experience. So he said, "Mijo, just get a job inside with air conditioning." And so I enrolled at Western that day during the summer, and started giving back to students who were experiencing the same experiences I was in higher ed at the university through TRIO and Upward Bound. Got involved with student government. In 2013, I was selected as a National Student of the Year. Opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., study at a Center for Government, work for Congressman Peter DeFazio in his D.C. office, and came back to Western for my senior year, where I graduated valedictorian in my class, and went to Stanford, got my master's degree in education policy, moved back to Oregon, where I worked in the state's chief financial office doing state finance work. So I'm particularly experienced when it comes to drawing down federal funds, drawing down state funds, and opportunities of how we can better serve Oregonians.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So the next question is, how would you prioritize state funding, including funding that is matched with federal funds, such as Medicaid, for a service to an increased senior and people with disability populations?
Yeah. So this is something extremely important. We should be doing everything we can. The state of Oregon, I mean, our legislators, our state agencies, our advocates, folks fighting for opportunities at the state, local, and federal level. We need to be united in this and doing everything we can to ensure that as a state, we are drawing down and using the full plethora of resources we have from the federal government when it comes to supporting our most vulnerable populations. That'll be a priority of mine when I get in, if and when I get elected in November. And I'm looking to opportunities that we've seen work in the past, whether they're grants, waivers, fully matching, ensuring that we're bringing in those dollars. Because at the end of the day, it's about serving our seniors, serving our people with disabilities to receive the necessary care that they need.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, during this time of increased risk of homeless and food insecurities, what will you do on the state level so that senior and people with disability no longer face lack of accessible, affordable housing and receive appropriate nutrition?
Yeah, certainly. It's about taking care of our folks. It's about taking care of our folks, specifically our seniors and people living with disabilities, and supporting the organizations that are really doing the work and doing the work in a meaningful way and in a way that really meets seniors and our people with disabilities where they're at. Organizations like the Oregon Food Bank, Meals on Wheels, local food bank organizations, organizations that are working to bring in affordable housing, not only for our seniors, but people with disabilities, because reality is the vast majority of seniors and folks living on disability have fixed incomes. And so how do we address a system in which we have, unfortunately, our most vulnerable populations in seniors and folks with disabilities on fixed incomes, when we see rent skyrocketing, when we see the price of homes increasing at double-digit rates? How do we ensure that we're not pricing out these communities that should have the support that they need at every single level? Again, local, state, federal. Oregon Project Independence is something super special because it's an example of what it means to bring bipartisan work directly to the community. Right, Oregon Project Independence was fought for on a bipartisan basis to ensure we can continue to serve our seniors and people with disabilities. And that's what Oregonians want to see. That's what our community members want to see. And so the more that we can do that and the more we can provide resources to address everything from homelessness, food insecurity, affordable housing, appropriate nutritional services, I'll certainly fight for that, continue to be an advocate for it, and believe I'm in a unique experience. I, again, was raised by my grandparents. First 18 years of my life, they're seniors, and someone with my grandfather's a person with disabilities. And I've been serving as their primary caregiver for the last 4 years outside of my full-time work. And so I just feel like I'm in a unique experience to talk about what our seniors are experiencing and how we can better serve them.
Thank you. So my last question is, what would you do as a legislator to address the behavioral health issues that have been brought on by health issues and isolation related with the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of what we're seeing now, I want to be, as clear as hopefully we can be, is a lot of this stuff existed prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic exposed it and made it worse. And so in exposing issues related to behavioral health, related to access to health issues, quality healthcare, etc., isolation unfortunately, that a lot of community members, particularly seniors and people with disabilities, went through during the pandemic. We learned what worked and what didn't work. And I think Oregon Project Independence is a perfect example of, for the seniors and folks with disabilities who were able to have their caregiver in their home during the pandemic, it went a long way. We were able to do, check-ins. We were able to go to their home, for, my experience. My grandparents live in Jervis. We were able to sign them up to get Meals on Wheels and a food box delivered right to the front of their house, and they would get it, I think, on like a weekly basis. And I think about what services they would have gotten if they weren't receiving, home care services through Oregon Project Independence. And then I could talk about my personal experience. I've been an elected official here in Woodburn for the last 5 years. I serve on the school board. And every year over the last several years, we continue to invest in counselors and behavioral health resources, social and emotional learning. Our students went through a lot during the pandemic. The whole world was just an unprecedented experience. And so the more we can have conversations with folks about, hey, what worked, what didn't work, here are the communities that really struggled, and how can we continue to invest and provide resources to those communities going forward, because the lingering effects of this pandemic will still be around for a long time.
Okay, so thank you, Anthony, for your answer. It was great conversation with you. So thank you for your dedications to running for the House District 22.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about my platform, my experience, and why I'm running for House District 22.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
I want to thank the candidates on behalf of the members of the Senior Advisory Council and the Disability Services Advisory Council of Northwest Senior and Disability Services for attending our candidate interviews. Copies of the interviews can be checked out from Northwest Senior and Disability Services by calling 503-304-3451. Again, that number is 503-304-3451. We hope the information that has been provided will help you make informed choices when you vote. The opinions expressed here are not endorsed by Northwest Senior and Disability Services. For more information or to get connected to services provided by Northwest Senior and Disability Services, please call 1-866-206-4799. Again, that number is 1-866-206-4799. The advisory councils for Northwest Senior and Disability Services would like to thank Capital Community Media for the production of the forum. Thank you for watching.